So, I have a flight to catch tomorrow morning, and I don't get back until after the Combine. I'm going to be out in Indy for quite a while, working on some really fun projects that you're going to see on this channel in a little bit. Stuff that I've never made before, but I think is going to come out really cool. But in the meantime, we're doing a mailbag episode today because it's pretty much all I have time to make this week. And also, you guys have been asking for it for a really long time. So we're doing it. First question from Jack Andrew Hunter, longtime subscriber and community member here. He's been around for, 6-7 years in the comments, Jack, I want to say. Of course, based over across the pond. And he asks, how would you go about bringing an NFL franchise/franchises to Europe? First things first, I want to say that if a team ever happens in, let's say, London, it's not going to be a team that moves from America to London. I think that ship has sailed. Jacksonville's staying. Carolina's staying. If anything, it will be a true expansion franchise, a 33rd, maybe even 34th team if they want to do two England-based teams. But it'll be new teams, and they will probably join the AFC East or NFC East or both if it's two teams. And in the spirit of these new teams being like truly European at their roots, not just taking a team from Florida and dropping in the middle of England, but for them to actually be European NFL teams with European fan bases, I want to let European sports fans be European sports fans. Like if I was the NFL commissioner, I would be very lax at controlling the environment at a true European home game in the NFL. Because if you look at soccer games over there or basketball games or pretty much any sporting event, like even fucking darts is like the best energy you've ever seen. It's like the jump around for Wisconsin home games, but for 4 straight hours. You know, it's like Enter Sandman at a VT game, but the entire time. Like European sporting events are the best. They're completely unhinged. And I want to foster that environment in the NFL. So again, if I was Roger Goodell, I would just kind of let the Europeans police themselves. I'm not going to hold them to the same, let's say, standards or restrictions that are on American fans at American stadiums. Like, I would just let them go nuts and probably have the best environment in the league. Like, if I'm being truly honest, very quickly, the European teams would have the best home environments in the league. Now, the hard part to putting a team over there is obviously going to be travel. That's going to be the main thing that has to be addressed, and it probably can't be addressed until the late 2020s to early 2030s. Like, I think 10 years from now is probably the earliest possible timeline this type of thing could even happen, because there needs to be some sort of supersonic travel over the Atlantic. Right now, it takes 6 hours to go from New York to London. It takes 9 hours to go from Miami to London. There is a company right now that's kind of building a spiritual successor to the Concorde. It's called Boom, and it's a supersonic passenger jet called Overture that could reduce the time from New York to London down to, I think it's like 3 hours, basically cutting it in half, which would put Miami to London in roughly 4 to 5 hours. And that is a manageable timeline. Like, you can make that work, putting a London team in an Eastern division if the flight times are less than 6 hours. But those planes, at the absolute earliest, are not entering service until 2029. So, again, we got a long way to go. Right now, I don't think it's possible, just because of how long it takes to get over there. Also, this is just kind of a side note while we're at it. If a West Coast team is going to have a true road game in London, it should be built into the schedule that they stop on the East Coast first. So basically make it a 2-week road stand. Have them go to the East Coast to play against insert AFC East team here, like whoever they're supposed to play from the AFC or NFC East that season, go on the road there first, get adjusted to East Coast time, and then do a second trip to London. If you're trying to make them do an 8-hour time difference for one road game, like a true road game, not a neutral site game, that seems a little unfair to me. So I'm sure the NFL has already considered all this, but I just want to throw that out there too. It is possible to make a London team work, but in terms of the transportation issues, technologically speaking, we don't have an answer for it for probably another decade. Next question, VT, fellow Texans fan. He asks, what narrative surrounding a particular player annoys you the most and why? I would probably cheat here and say it's a narrative surrounding 2 players, or really more of a fight surrounding 2 players. This competition between Browns fans and Steelers fans for who's better between Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, I don't care. Like, I really don't care. They're both going to be in the Hall of Fame. They're both going to have at least 6 Pro Bowls and 6 All-Pro nods and a Defensive Player of the Year award trophy. They're going to end up 2 of the most productive pass rushers ever by the time they hang it up. Like, who cares? We're comparing 2 guys that don't even play the same role, okay? TJ Watt plays left outside linebacker almost exclusively, okay? He lines up on the left edge. I think he had 8 snaps total on the right side of the front the entire year last year. And as a linebacker, he also drops into coverage more. Like, they do actually drop him into coverage. The Browns don't drop Myles Garrett. So, Steelers fans, of course, TJ Watt's going to have more interceptions than Myles. Like, you actually put him in coverage. What the fuck do you think's going to happen? Yes, he's going to get opportunities for interceptions. And then Browns fans, on the flip side of the coin, you guys got to stop, posting this chart of like double team rate compared to pass rush win rate. The chart you're posting is meaningless. Like, I hope you know that. Like, do you understand how ESPN actually charts those statistics? Well, first of all, they don't actually chart them. They use tracking chip data, okay? They calculate proximity based on the chips that are in these players' shoulder pads, based on how close they are and the direction that players are facing. They run that data through an algorithm and it spits out a projected double team rate. They're not sitting there and charting every single snap, looking at protection calls and trying to figure out how much they're actually double teamed. It's fucking tracking chip data, okay? And then they use that same chip data to determine a quote unquote pass rush win, which they treat it again as proximity to quarterback, not are you actually winning the rep. So it's just an estimate. It's not actual data. It's not a real statistic. You can't just post that chart and say Myles Garrett got double teamed more than anybody and won more than anybody. They're not actually charting it. It's not a real stat. Don't use that. This entire debate just drives me insane because it's bad faith arguments on both sides. And obviously both fan bases hate each other anyway. And not to mention Myles Garrett with the helmet thing. Like, there's always been bad blood there. I get it. But oh my God, can we at least use sound arguments when debating the differences between these 2 players? They don't even play the same role, okay? Like, we talk about TJ Watt being an outside linebacker. Myles Garrett is a true hand-in-the-dirt defensive end that will line up at 9 technique, 6 technique, 5 technique, 4-eye. They put him at fucking 3 technique, okay? They will walk him up over the center as a stand-up rusher, and then he will just Euro step his way around people. Like, he plays in more spots. He does different stuff. TJ drops in coverage. He gets interceptions. He makes huge game-changing plays in a variety of ways, just like Myles Garrett makes huge game-changing plays in a variety of ways. You're all exhausting. And by the way, the other 30 fan bases in the league don't care about this either. They're all exhausted by this too. The only people that care about it are Steelers fans and Browns fans, because for whatever reason, they can't just sit there and appreciate the greatness that is in front of them, even if it's on another team. Actually, now that I think about it, I lied. There is one other fan base that cares about this, and that's Raiders fans, but that's just because they think that Max Crosby is better than both of them. And I'm kind of inclined to give that to them because they have nothing else, and I am genuinely worried about their mental health. So, from here on out, Max Crosby, best edge rusher in the league. There you go. You got something, Vegas. We still have a few more questions to get to, but I did want to issue a quick warning for this next part. Okay, it might be a little bit traumatizing, a little bit triggering for some of you that have watched this channel for a long time. But I thought it was fair to warn you that it's not the last day of the month yet, but we're still going to talk about Factor. I understand, it's early, you have a routine, and you like to stick to that routine, but just trust me, okay? I will guide you through this, stick with me, we will get through it together. All right, let's do this. If you're not familiar with Factor already, they make meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. There are more than 35 meal options to choose from each week that can fit most dietary preferences. They only take 2 minutes to heat up, and all of them taste great too because they're made with real ingredients, so it's real food. See, you guys are doing great. You're going to get through this just fine. Factor also has other add-ons as well, like wellness shots if you believe in starting your day off the right way. I live in LA, so we pretty much run on wellness shots out here. So if you're looking for quick food options to get you through a busy workday, but you want to eat something that you're actually going to like, I think Factor is definitely worth giving a try to see if you like it too. All right, home stretch. Here we go. Almost there. If you want to try it out, you can use my promo code by heading to factor75.com or click the link below. Use promo code FilmRoom50. That will give you 50% off your first Factor box and 2 free wellness shots in every box for life while you're an active subscriber. Just one more sentence to go. Again, that is FilmRoom50 at factor75.com for a 50% discount and free wellness shots for life while your subscription is active. See? You made it through okay, all right? I'm proud of you. But I apologize also for breaking your routine. So next month, we'll go back to normal. Factor, thank you for sponsoring today's show, but I will see you all on March 31st. For the rest of you, though, we'll get back into the show. Still have a few more questions to answer. Starting with this one from Gross Chat. Might be Gross Cat, but I'm going to assume Gross Chat. What's your take on everything surrounding Caleb Williams? Don't you think he seems a bit toxic? The short version is no. The long version is definitely no. Look, I say this as somebody who lives like 10 minutes away from the USC campus. Like, again, I'm in the middle of downtown. USC's right next to downtown. And I've talked to his teammates multiple years now. I've talked to people that are in and around the program, that cover the program. I have never heard anybody say a bad word about Caleb Williams. As a leader, as a person, obviously as a player, they all love him there. They would go to war for that dude. They say he's an incredibly hard worker. He's smart. He has the true makeup of a franchise quarterback in the NFL. He just happens to paint his nails. And, like, who gives a shit? Have you ever interacted with a single person from Gen Z ever? Like, I'm a millennial. I'm in my 30s. I don't have painted nails, but, like, do you guys not remember when we were in our teen years and early 20s? Like, do you guys not remember Hawthorne Heights concerts? Like, people express themselves in different ways when they're coming of age. I don't care. Like, I really don't care. Painted nails doesn't bother me at all. Like, what he chooses to wear doesn't bother me at all. I don't give a shit because he's a genuinely good dude. He's a good leader. He's a hell of a player. Like, this is what draft coverage is coming to now. We're talking about painted nails and what he chooses to wear when all the actual stuff that matters for playing quarterback is, like, off the charts phenomenal. But we're going to look at that, or, you know, we're going to knock him for crying in his mother's arms after losing a very consequential football game that basically knocked him out of national championship contention, you know, something that he had been working for a long time. Like, he won the Heisman. He got the personal accolades. He made a bunch of money. He had no personal accolades left for him to get. He wanted a team accolade, which was a championship run, a true championship run like the one that Washington went on. He wanted that, and he lost in brutal fashion. He did everything he possibly could to beat Utah, and his defense folded, and he lost. And so he got emotional when he saw his mom on the sidelines who was trying to comfort him because she knew how important the game was to him. Like, are we going to knock him for caring? Are we going to knock him for giving a shit and wanting to be a champion and losing a game and getting emotional about losing a game? Like, what are we doing? Like, do we not remember that he was in high school 3 years ago? Like, he's young, and he's famous, and he's rich, and he has an immense amount of pressure on him. Like, all these factors converging onto a 21-year-old still developing brain, and he's handled all of that as well as you possibly could. Being that famous, being that rich, having that much pressure, he has handled that immaculately well for his age. And so we're looking at this very young person, and we're trying to find any reason to nitpick this very young person who hasn't really done anything wrong. Okay, he's never done anything criminal. He's never gone out of his way to do something like dirty on a football field. Like, what the fuck are we doing, guys? Okay, Caleb Williams is not toxic. And also, side note, he's fine with going to Chicago. There's people in his orbit that were kind of making noise about it, but Caleb himself doesn't care. Caleb's going to go wherever he gets drafted, all right? He doesn't give a shit. So stop attributing every little story and rumor you hear about what Caleb wants and doesn't want to Caleb himself, because that is not true. I know that for sure. That is not true. And also, like, stop just trying to find reasons to turn him into Johnny Manziel. All right, I remember Johnny coming out. This ain't that. All right, two very different people. All right, next question. This comes from tech support. If you could make one executive change to the NFL as an institution right now, what would it be and why? So I have kind of a preloaded answer to this question because I get asked variations of this question all the time. But I'm going to break out the whiteboard as my visual aid because you'll understand pretty soon why this is necessary. Forgive me for this being slightly messy, but I did draw it upside down, so, did the best I could. But what you're looking at right here is the current preseason and regular season and playoff structure as it stands right now. So you have 4 preseason weeks, the first one being kind of a preseason week 0, as the league refers to it, Hall of Fame week, preseason week 1, week 2, week 3, and then you get to the regular season, weeks 1 through 18. There's 17 regular season games per team, 1 bye week. What I am advocating for is that we move preseason up by a week and we eliminate the Hall of Fame game being in its own week. And at the same time, we also move the entire regular season up by a week and extend it to 19 weeks. Now, keep in mind, I'm not asking for the league to add an extra regular season game and put extra wear and tear on the players. That's kind of a different discussion. I am advocating that we add a second bye week. So everything moves up by a week. We eliminate the Hall of Fame game being its own week, and there's just going to be 3 preseason weeks total. The Hall of Fame game can be the first preseason game of preseason week 1 if they want it to be, just to kind of maintain it being special, but it doesn't need its own week anymore. This lets us have 2 bye weeks in the regular season for each team. What this is going to accomplish is that it lets us, let's say this is the new preseason week 3 here, or regular season week 3, excuse me. What this allows us to accomplish is we can still start TNF the same calendar week, but now it's going to be regular season week 3 instead of regular season week 2, and still go to the same calendar week out to week 18 here, or the new week 18 instead of week 17. And so there's still the same number of TNF games, but adding a second bye week means that automatically the week before you play TNF, you get that other bye week. That is the whole purpose of the second bye week, is so that every time you play on TNF, you're going into it with a full rest period. By the way, we are not making any adjustments to the playoff schedule. The wildcard round is still going to start the same calendar week. The Super Bowl is still the same calendar week. The first preseason game is still the same calendar week. And there's still the same number of TNF games. It's still 16 TNF games. Again, you times that by 2. There's 32 teams in the league. So you could still make it so that every team in the NFL automatically has to play a TNF game, which will automatically trigger them getting that other bye week. Overall, to me, I think this schedule makes a lot of sense. It gives us an extra Sunday of actual real football to watch that actually means something, but without adding an extra game to add wear and tear to the players. It just kind of, again, stretches out the timeline a little bit. Plus, it guarantees that every team will get a primetime game at some point, which there were 4 teams last year that didn't get a primetime game. And those primetime games on Thursdays theoretically should be better because the players will be better prepared and better rested. So a lot of upside there. Very little downside, in my opinion. So, NFL, if you're watching, please do that. All right, last question here from JTC. You and EJ talk about the Shrine Bowl a lot. Can you speak as to its significance for college players and the translation it has to the draft board? So, for those of you who don't know, EJ is my podcast partner. He's referring to our podcast channel, the Bootleg Football Podcast, where we have a lot of draft content that has already been posted and will be posted throughout draft season, including interviews that we recorded at the Shrine Bowl. I think the first one's going to be Edgerrin Cooper, the Texas A&M linebacker. But when we went to the Shrine Bowl a couple weeks ago, one of the big reasons why we go there is because of the media access at that event. It is the only place we can go where we can sit down with a player for 10, 15, 20 minutes and watch film with them and ask them about their techniques, ask them about their reads, and get a really deep understanding of what they are as a football player and also what they are as a person. If you're looking at other, pre-draft events like the Combine, they're up at a podium and you might get to ask like one question and get a 20-second answer. Or, if you're at a pro day, there might be a scrum after the pro day, and again, you might get them for 30 seconds. it's tough to really go in depth with a player at those events. But at the Shrine Bowl specifically, we can go as deep as we want to about pretty much any topic. And I think the players enjoy that interview format a lot more as well. On the team side, they also find value in those events because not every one of those players is actually going to go to the Combine. Like typically the rate for Shrine and Senior Bowl players going to the Combine is pretty high, but there are a pretty significant number of players that won't be at Combine. So those teams' best chances to interview those guys without burning an official visit is to talk to them at the All-Star games. Like Christian Boyd, he's probably going to go, somewhere in the middle rounds. I think he's one of the more underrated defensive tackles in this class from UNI. I absolutely love that kid. He had a dominant week at the Shrine Bowl, didn't get a Combine invite. So all the interviews that he did at Shrine Bowl were incredibly valuable. And I would also say that even for the players that are going to the Combine, the interviews that you do at Shrine and Senior Bowl are very valuable because any team that you talk to, at least from a player's perspective, any team that you talk to at those all-star events, you don't necessarily have to talk to them again at the Combine. Like if you kind of get everything done that you need to get done interview-wise, it can cut down on the amount of interviews you have to do. So, for example, Luke Schoonmaker, a tight end who I think got drafted in the second round by the Cowboys, went to Shrine Bowl, did a bunch of interviews with teams, and then only had to do 12 interviews at the Combine. So, it kind of cut down on the amount of stuff that he had to do that week, which meant he could be better rested, better prepared. He had really good testing, which I think you could argue the fact that he wasn't up until 3 a.m. doing interviews every night meant that his testing was going to be better. And that happens for a lot of prospects now every single year. They knock out interviews during All-Star season. It lessens their load at Combine, so they feel fresher, they perform better, and then they end up getting drafted higher. So I think there's kind of a symbiotic relationship between All-Star season and Combine and pro days and visits, and there's a lot more to the All-Star events than what you think. All right, that'll wrap it up for today. I want to thank everybody who submitted questions because we had close to 200 submissions, I think. Pretty much impossible to get through all of them today, obviously. But in the future, if you want to stop by our future Q&As, again, we do those on the Discord. We try to do them every week. Sometimes due to travel, they have to get kind of pushed around a little bit. Our next one, I'm going to be trying to do it from Indy when I'm out there for the Combine on Wednesday. So if I didn't get to your question today and you're a Patreon member, stop by our Discord server because we do that patron-only Q&A as much as we possibly can, and I'll try to put that time on screen right now. Thank you once again to everybody who asked questions today, and for those of you who I missed, I hope to see you in the Discord very soon. Till next time.